Hello, if you're there, I'm checking to see. Kind of says live, kind of doesn't. All right, this one says we're live over in the Facebook group, so I'm guessing we're live over in YouTube. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Training Thursday. I am Wendy. I started to say Wednesday. I am Wendy, the Success Doula, and today we are going to be talking about why you need a trauma-informed coach. So this is something that actually has come up so much. I mean, it always comes up because I don't know if you've been anywhere in self-development, self-help, all of those avenues, right? You probably have heard people talking about trauma. And if you guys do not know this about me, even I am a business coach and I'm also an orgasm coach. And I have spent the last 3 or 4 years studying the nervous system, because when it comes to orgasms, it all starts and ends in the brain, and that is completely the nervous system. And so I have gone deep into it, and trauma is stored in your nervous system. It's not all in the brain, which people have been led to believe in the past because we thought it was in the brain, but it's actually stored in your body. And that's why I'm a big proponent of embodiment. And that is actually kind of why it's important to have a trauma-informed coach in your business practice. And the reason why is that, especially if you are a new entrepreneur and you're getting started, you are going to have your past experiences, your limiting beliefs, your, negative thoughts, all of these things are going to come front and center as a business owner. And that is because we do not do anything in isolation. Our bodies are intricately, designed to work. All the different parts and pieces of our body work together. And it's the same in life. You are not, you might try to separate these different areas of your life, but it's still you. If you're a parent, you're always a parent, no matter what it is that you're doing. If you are happily single, you are always happily single, no matter what it is you're doing. If you're a business owner, you're still a business owner if you're taking a hike. It doesn't matter. All of these pieces of our life come together always. And I see it consistently now, how much people try to work in isolation in certain areas. And this is something that I learned with my people over in the orgasm coaching, how important it was to actually incorporate different areas of their life into helping them make progress. And I saw the same thing here with my business coaching. So as I shifted, even though I was an orgasm coach, I've always been doing business development, marketing, consulting. I've been doing that for 20 years. I was very passionate and excited about doing the orgasm coaching, and I still do love it, and it's still a part of who I am. But I also realized that my gifts, my abilities are best served, or not best, but also served in being a business coach, because I have this trauma-informed practice. And so the thing is, like, as a business owner, when you have certain kinds of beliefs, whether it can be simple. And I want to say this too. We talk about trauma a lot. Trauma does not have to be big T trauma. In fact, yesterday I was having a doctor's appointment with my doctor, and we got into a conversation because she knows I'm an orgasm coach. And so we were talking about different things. And I had asked her a question because I had gotten certain information that came to me about my body while I was meditating. And I asked her if she meditated, and she's like, no. She's like, I haven't been able to make that work. And then we got it talking about journaling and meditation. And I explained to her, I'm like, well, I asked her real quick, I'm like, well, what kind of meditation have you been doing? And she told me the kind of exercises she had tried. And I was like, well, that may not work for your type of trauma response. And she's like, oh, I haven't had a traumatic life. I was like, I'm not talking big T trauma. You as a doctor know that, like, if you get in a car accident, yeah, there's like big things, and you want to help them, but you also know that if you're walking incorrectly and having these repetitive patterns come up, they might seem very small and little in comparison to, say, a big car accident, but over time they have a huge effect on your body. And so this is the same when it comes to our quote unquote personal traumas, right? Like, we say it's all in your head. Well, it's not all in your head. That stuff gets stored in your body and it wants to come out. Your body wants to be in a state of equilibrium. And so it will bring up whatever thought, memory, negative pattern that is able to be released in that moment. Your entire body, working in conjunction with your brain, I'm not separating them, will try to get you to resolve this issue. So anytime you have anything coming up, aka you're getting triggered, it's your body's way of saying, hey, let's deal with this. Let's get to the heart of this and let's get this removed. And so when you are a business owner, you will find that all these little traumas in your life, little or big, all of these traumas in your life come up because your body is trying to actually resolve them. And so as in the business world, there's so much focus on strategy. And don't get me wrong, you need a good strategy. So I am not downplaying strategy, because you can have the best product, solution, offer in the world, but if no one knows about it, it's not going to do anybody any good. So you absolutely need to have like good, solid marketing strategy to be able to get your information, your offer out there into the world. However, if you have a whole bunch of little traumas or big traumas, things in your past that have caused certain thoughts and certain actions to create these big, deep neurological pathways in your brain, it's going to take some time to overcome them. And if you're working with a business coach that doesn't know about how this all works and maybe doesn't have the experience in helping you with going through your traumas, you're definitely going to want to work with someone. You can have more than one coach. I have more than one coach. Like, it's okay to have more than one coach. But it is important that you are always working with both there's 3 aspects to a person, I truly believe: a mind, body, and spirit. And you really should be focusing on all 3 of those. And when it comes to your business, it kind of breaks down into the same thing. So you've got like your strategy, which you absolutely have to have your strategy right. And then you also have to have the mindset right. But you also need to keep that component of your spiritual part, like always bringing it back to the big why. I do this with my clients all the time. Sometimes they're like, oh, what about this? I had this idea. I saw this person and they're talking about this and that looks good. And I'm like, all right, let's go back to your big why. Let's see how that fits into this, because if it doesn't fit in with your big why, you shouldn't be there. And it's the same with trauma, right? So like there are certain things that you're going to be able to do depending on where you are in resolving certain traumas. We all come to this world with different traumas and different strengths, different abilities, and our life experiences bring so much, variety into our life. And so, what one person may struggle with is not going to be the same thing as another person. And, yesterday, as I said, I was talking with the doctor and we were talking about the meditation practices, and she was talking about the trauma, and I was like, well, remember, did you learn about trauma and trauma responses? I'm like, fight or flight, right? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, about freeze and collapse? She's like, oh, yeah, kind of. And I was like, all of us, we have a different mechanism that is our default. So if you have fight, flight, freeze, or collapse, they are going to show up differently. And when it comes to business in general, people who have the flight response as their primary stress trauma response mechanism, they actually do really well in business. They don't have an issue, because part of the flight response is wanting to make plans and take that plan, because the flight is like, how do I get out of this situation? Like, what is the quickest way to get me out of the situation that I am experiencing right now? And so they're the ones that are like engineering plans up and creating this whole strategy, and then they just go for it. But, that's like their primary. But if your primary is to fight, you're going to be probably a little bit more into maybe the complaining about things and blaming other people. That's just your default programming, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's ways to go overcome it. If your default is to freeze, you are going to probably go into, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and like just hope that everything is going to work out. I'm just going to do this, and you're ignoring the things that are going on, because that is what has kept you safe and, able to handle the experiences that you've handled in your life. And then there's collapse, which is a little bit more intense than freeze, and it is definitely more the ostrich, where like it's a lot of it has to do with like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. You're talking about it and you're excited, but then you're actually not able to do any of the things because your body is in this collapse mode. And so a lot of my ADHD people have a tendency to get into collapse, because ADHD and collapse actually do have some similarities. Because I don't know if you know this, ADHD is a neurological brain pattern. And so there is very similar to what happens into collapse when you have a collapse trauma response. And so a lot of times my ADHD people have that collapse response, but you don't have to have ADHD to have collapse. So a lot of times, I personally have ADHD, and so I'm very aware of all of those traits of ADHD. So sometimes you can have a collapse response, which does present itself a lot like ADHD, but you also don't have the neurological patterns that change your neurotransmitters. So I know this, it can get really complicated. I can get really sciencey on all of the stuff really quickly. So I'm trying to pull myself back in. Because I understand part of the orgasm coaching was actually understanding all of the neurotransmitters and where the different places in the orgasm process and which neurotransmitters were coming up and what they do, how they function, what is needed in order to get those neurotransmitters, so that way you can continue on in the process. So that's why I'm a trauma, and it's partly how I became a trauma-informed coach, was because I realized how much our trauma affects the way our body produces these neurotransmitters. And when it comes to business, you actually need a lot of these same neurotransmitters, because there's really only 9 neurotransmitters that have you do everything in your body. And so if any of those are off, you're not going to do certain things. And some of that included is dopamine. You might have heard about dopamine. And if you have ADHD, you don't make as much dopamine. And what dopamine actually is, it's been titled the reward neurotransmitter, but it's not reward at all, because reward means pleasure. There's actually no pleasure involved with dopamine. It is actually a biomechanical function of repeating a process. So motivation, right? Like the wanting to get up and do an action. That's really all it is. Dopamine makes you do an action. And so if your body is not producing enough dopamine, it's going to present differently. So like and when you get into collapse response on trauma, it's the same thing. You actually shut down your dopamine production. And so you may really, really, really want to do something, like really, like consciously know, like, oh my God, I want to build this business. Like you can feel it in your bones. But if your body is not producing dopamine, you're not going to be able to take the action. And so this is why having a trauma-informed coach really comes into play, because they can help you work on these different areas. Okay, that was my undefined throat center of my human design chart. Not speaking. But anyways, if you work with a trauma-informed coach, they can help you get these different practices in place that are going to help you sustain your action, right? Because as a business owner, you do absolutely have to take action, and you have to be aware of when you aren't, what that is. Because sometimes it's a lack of direction, right? Sometimes you may not know what the next step is. Sometimes it's not being tied back to your big vision and your why. Sometimes it's just a biological response that you just need some extra tools to be able to help you get through that. Sometimes it's a mindset shift. Sometimes it's just not digging in and figuring out what the actual problem is. And so that is one of the things that I do work with my people on, because you see the huge progress people make once you make these shifts. Because sometimes, as I said, it's not just one or the other. Sometimes it's the strategy. Sometimes it's the biological response. Sometimes it's mindset. It's about putting all of these things together. And if you are working with a trauma-informed coach, they can help you do that. They can help you actually figure out, like, is it just a strategy thing, or is it a mindset shift, or is it an actual biological trauma response that we need to help you figure out the right solution to work with. So all of those are super, super important. And that, I believe, is the biggest reason why people really, really do need a trauma-informed coach. Because if you find yourself struggling in creating your business, then it's probably one of these 3 things. And when it comes to strategy, pretty much all the information is out there, right? Like, let's face it, there is so much free information on YouTube University. Go spend a couple, want to know anything about anything, you can pretty much find it and spend a couple hours and learn it. And so it's not about the information that we need, right? Like, it's not necessarily the next step that we need. It is a lot of the other supportive, the accountability, the helping you create those practices and those tools to keep yourself going as you're building your business. Because I'm telling you, like, they're going to come up, like any doubts you have about yourself, any lack of self-worth, any I mean, that's pretty much like what it boils down to: doubting yourself and not believing in yourself and not feeling like you're good enough, right? Like, that's the only reason why, for the most part, people don't do things, especially if they have the strategy. Like, if you have the strategy and you're not doing something, it's got to be one of those. So it's about getting it into it. And so there's so many different modalities that work for people. And hopefully you found some that have worked for you. And if you haven't, then you should work with someone who has a whole bunch of tools in their toolkit, so that way they can help you narrow it down and figure out what's going to work. Because there is a way to make everything, to make your dreams come true. There's a solution to every problem out there. It's just a matter of finding it and working with the right people that are going to help you create and develop the solution that works the best for you. All right. So yeah, that's it. You need a trauma-informed coach because you're going to face your traumas as you are building your business. They come up every day. Well, maybe not every day, at least every week, if not every day. I swear they come up every day. Something little comes up every day. But as you start learning how to shift those, you don't even notice them as they start coming up every day, because you have these great practices to be able to deal with the trauma patterns that show up in your life. All right, so that is it for today. I hope you are working with a trauma-informed coach. If you're curious about what I do and what it looks like to work with me, please feel free to send me a message and I will gladly talk to you about it. You can check out my upcoming launch. I call it launch. My upcoming challenge bootcamp work. I mean, there's so many different words for it. It's going to be on September. Oh my gosh, it's next week. No, September 30th. Oh my God, why did I forget? Next week is a different thing I'm doing. Sorry. It's September 30th. And I will be putting up all of the notifications about it. I actually did this live before I had everything ready, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that I'm going to be having it. So please pay attention. It will be coming up. You'll be seeing the announcements of it. It's going to be about how to create a magnetic offer. And I'm going to go through the exact framework that I use with my people in my program to create their magnetic offer, because there are different aspects of it that get overlooked. And actually part of it is the trauma-informed aspects that I see being overlooked in a lot of other programs. I've been enrolled in a lot of programs throughout the last few years, and there always seems to be some missing pieces. And I do think that part of it has to do with really getting clear on your particular your work style. Like, that's a big part of it, right? So each of these different programs, they assume a certain level of ability. And especially if you have ADHD, you may find yourself struggling in certain programs because they're designed for people who don't have problems producing dopamine. But you do need to, if you do have problems producing dopamine and if you're on medication, then you probably can do the programs pretty easily. If you're doing it without medication and you're trying to do it in a more natural way, and you're trying to increase your dopamine levels naturally, then you're going to need a program that's going to support you through that process. So that is one of the things that my program does, is it definitely works. I mean, I work with people who have ADHD that are medicated, that are unmedicated, that are don't know they have ADHD, haven't cared to get diagnosed, all of that. And I have a lot of people that actually don't have ADHD at all and don't have any problems. I give them a task and they just do it. So that is a different, issue, right? So I just want to say it's all tied to my trauma informed. Everything that I do in my business takes the whole person into perspective. And so that includes when you create an offer. And I have seen from the beginning, like, you have to get your offer very clear before you can actually create a business around it. So, and part of getting your offer really clear is really understanding how you work, what your big vision is, and tying it all together. So I'm going to go over all of that during the boot camp. Or the challenge. I haven't figured out. It's just called Create a Magnetic Offer. And I guess it's going to be a challenge. So at the end of the 5 days, you are going to actually, I'll teach you how to create an elevator pitch and how to tie it into the framework and how to use the framework that I'm going to show you. And at the end of the 5 days, you can actually use all of the information I gave you and start selling your offer. So look out for that. You'll be seeing me posting a bunch of stuff on that. But that is it for today. And I hope you guys all have a lovely, lovely weekend. And I will see you guys all next week. All right. Bye-bye.